Elections are supposed to be one of the most peaceful ways for power to change hands. In theory, people vote, results are counted, and power changes hands. But across many African countries, elections don't always feel like competition. They feel like a conflict. One pattern repeats. Opposition becomes a target. Now, in this episode of Culture, Power, and Systems, we'll break down why this keeps happening, and we use Cameroon, Tanzania, and Uganda as our case studies. Elections are not just about numbers. They test who controls, who controls the institutions, who controls the security, who controls the media, who controls the media narrative, who controls the resources, who controls legitimacy. So when elections come, they don't just come to threaten the seats. They come to threaten an entire system of power. And when power is built like a network, opposition becomes a threat to the whole network and not just one leader. Now, in what they call healthy democracies, opposition is normal. Opposition challenges the policies, opposition challenges or debate the ideas, opposition provides alternatives, and many other things. But in many election environments, opposition is being treated as rebellion, as a disrespect, insurrection, destabilization, betrayal. And one major reason is this: the ruling party and the state are often too closely linked. So when opposition arises, it is not interpreted as competition, but it's treated as a threat to the state itself, and not as a threat or as opposition or competition to opposition parties. Cameroon is a very strong example of how political tension can become really, really structural. Cameroon has had a long-standing ruling system, and opposition politics often operates under heavy pressure politically and socially. During election seasons, you notice one common pattern. Political debates become highly emotional. Opposition figures are often framed as troublemakers rather than alternatives. Citizens sometimes fear to speak openly because politics can affect their work, can affect their relationship, can affect their safety. The atmosphere becomes either you support a side or you stay silent. And this creates a reality where elections feel less like competition of ideas and more like battles of survival and control. In that environment, opposition isn't simply another option. It becomes a target because the system has learned to treat it that way. Uganda is another important case study, especially because of how visible opposition politics has become in recent years. Uganda's election environment shows how opposition can become a target through heavy control of public spaces, through strong security presence during political moments, and a restriction that can affect opposition mobilization, narrative framing that paints opposition as disorderly or dangerous. In such environments, the opposition doesn't just campaign, it struggles to exist publicly without being treated like a security threat. And when opposition becomes linked to risk, it becomes easier for the system to justify pressure. So the election becomes less about policy, debate, and more about control of the environment. Tanzania offers a different kind of example. In some cases, the issue isn't always loud chaos. Sometimes quiet control. Tanzania has experienced periods where political space felt limited, and the opposition actively could face restriction through party regulations, public gathering limitations, media access imbalance, political pressure that makes organizing difficult. This creates a controlled political atmosphere where the opposition is present but not always empowered. And that's another form of targeting, not always by noise, by narrowing the space where opposition can operate. Now, across these case studies, the methods may look different, but the tools are often repeated. Narrative control. Opposition is framed as violent, foreign sponsored, irresponsible, destabilizing. And we also have legal pressure. Opposition faces a lot of legal pressure. We have disqualifications, common in Cameroon, Uganda, Tanzania. You have bans, you have selective enforcement, you have administrative restrictions, you have security pressure. Opposition gatherings become security concerns, while the ruling party events appear very normal. And then you have the economic pressure. Supporters can face job risk, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, business risks, and social risk. Politics become very, very expensive. And so also most supporters of the opposition party sometimes they get to back down. This is not just about bad leadership. It's about system. And for many African countries or in many African contexts, power is not just about leadership. It is about access. Access to resources, access to networks, protection, even contracts. And then you have influence. And so losing an election is not just losing the status. It can mean losing your own safety. That's why opposition becomes a target, because election becomes a high stake beyond democracy. If elections are to improve, we must focus on institutions, independent electoral bodies, neutral security forces, free and fair media access, transparent result systems, and we also have courts that don't play politics. We also need to have the protection of opposition rights. Because all this is important, because democracy is not just about voting. Democracy is the ability to disagree without fear. I should be able to give my opinion. I should be able to be of a position without the fear of probably going to jail or being called a national security threat. Cameroon, Uganda, Tanzania show different versions of the same problem. When systems are weak, power becomes very personal. And when power becomes personal, opposition becomes a target. This is culture, power, and system. Be one idea at a time.